Welcome to Vital Science Weekly Show. We have spoken about your why the last few weeks in your business, and I think we are quite confident in why we need our why. But we had a few requests asking questions about your value and your why, and we thought it's actually a good topic to talk about, your values. But before we talk about values, I think I need to just say that there is no perfect business in this world. Every day we deal with staff issues, we deal with consumers, we deal with difficult clients or patients. And sometimes these issues we have is not our fault. It's totally out of our control. And that is why it's so important to know your why, know your values, that we can minimize those risks and how we're going to handle it. If our clients know our why and that we have an issue, it's easy for us to explain to them how we're going to sort it out. If they know our why, they will not go somewhere else. They will come to us and say, we have a problem. So maybe we can just speak a little bit about values.
I think you make a really good point, and you've actually, just as you were speaking there, reminded me of an incident I had recently. I went to my doctor and he changed medications, which ended up being a really bad idea because me going off the medication, there were a whole lot of side effects that ensued. But I know his why. I know that he is a doctor because he genuinely cares about people and he genuinely wants people to live the best life they can. And I sort of thought to myself, because there was a bit of inconvenience involved, I sort of thought to myself, if he had been someone else that I didn't absolutely trust and I didn't absolutely think had my best interests at heart, I probably would have been quite upset. But because it was him, I just thought, well, you did what you thought was best. Yep. And I trust you. And so, just what are we going to do to fix it now? And I think you're absolutely right. When people resonate with your why, it's okay to make mistakes, as long as you're honest and you're being authentic with your why.
But also, I think with values, your why and your values, that's your purpose. These days, it is so important for your customers and your clients to know what you do. Just for example, I think an happy client, is tomorrow's competition for you. If we take, for example, Uber, we take Airbnb, all those people disrupted the market because they were unhappy about their service or the service provider. Let's take it a step further. If you said to me 5 years ago that there's a hotel group that's the biggest in the world and they don't have one room, I would say, how is that possible? You have Uber, that's a big company, but they don't have one vehicle. So we have to keep our clients happy. We have to let our clients buy into our values so we can keep them. And if they have a problem, that they will come to us and say, there's an issue, so let's sort it out. I think further to that, it's important that your staff needs to know your values and your why. Because if they buy into your values, they can help you to build your business. They can help you sell your business to your patients or to your clients.
I think the interesting question we did have was, so how is your why different to or related to your values? And I think one of the things to just mention is that your values aren't something that you're just necessarily born with. Your values change throughout your life. And there are things that at particular times will be of really high value to you, and at maybe another point in life might be a lower value. But one of the things we know is that if the work you do or the purpose or why you have aligns very closely with your highest values, then it's something that energizes you, it's something that you find inspiring, and it's something that leads to achievement.
Yes.
If what you're doing to generate an income is very low on your values, then often that's when you tend to procrastinate, and that's also where you tend to find what you're doing quite tedious.
Yep.
Yeah. So finding your values, again, for some people, it may be very evident. For other people or businesses, it may be a journey that you need to go on. And again, that's where coaching is really beneficial to help you discover those values.
Well, for me, for my values, when I go to a networking, it's really hard work for me sometimes because people always say, but you're such an extrovert. I'm an introvert. But when I go out and I meet people and I start talking about coaching, I get so excited that I think I'm an extrovert. Sometimes we will coach 9 o'clock at night, especially when we coach people in South Africa. And after the coaching, I am so energized I can't sleep. So when it's high on your value scale, it energizes you, people can see it, and you get results. So it's important to know your values and your why.
Yeah, and I think what you've mentioned there, one of the ways that you can get a sense of what is of a high value in your life is, what are you usually talking about?
Yes.
What do you find exciting to do? If people had to come and visit you in your home, what would they see reflected in your home? That's often a very good indication of what is important to you. Yeah. An example I sort of thought of while we were discussing the show is, this is a childhood memory really going back to the age of 5. I wasn't at school yet, and I was an only child, and I remember my mum and dad talking about this a lot. One of my dad's really high values is family, and he really did put my mum and my sisters and I above everything. And he was offered essentially a promotion at work, but what that would entail would be working away from home for about a month. Now, depending on your values, that may or may not be an issue, but for my dad, who's very family-driven, he just bluntly said no, that would not be possible. And so what ended up happening was the company saying, well, if you don't do it, perhaps we're not the company for you, and he said, so be it. And long story short, my mum and I got to spend an amazing month at a hotel while my dad completed the task that only he could do. Now, for someone who didn't put a high value on family, that might have been a really strange decision, maybe even a career-limiting decision. But for my dad, who's very clear on his values, that was just not something that he even had to think about. And when he passed away, one of the things that people really remembered him for was being family-oriented and being a father figure.
Welcome back to Vital Signs Weekly Chat. We talked about your why and your values. And for me to link to that, I think I want to start to say that when we start dealing with a client, the first question I ask them, are you interested or are you committed? Meaning that if you're interested, you will do things until it gets a little bit hard and you will stop doing it. But when you're committed, you will do whatever it takes to reach your goal. And that's where your values and your goal and your why comes in, to reach your goals. With your values, you have different levels of values. And the higher your value level, the more you committed to reach your goal. Now, our primitive brain is going towards pleasure and avoid pain. So if you are committed, you will go through the pain to reach your goal. But if you're only interested and you only do things until it gets difficult, that goal will never materialize.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely. If you're committed, you're going to do what it takes.
Thanks.
You know that there's going to probably be some short-term pain for long-term
Yes.
gain. As you say, if you're really just interested, you'll kind of do what's convenient. And I think one of the things to take into account as well is you've got to be very honest with yourself when you go into business or you start up a medical practice, because depending on what your values and your priorities are at the time, there are some sacrifices that you may need to make along the way. And as long as you're able to know your why and understand what that means, you're going to set yourself up for success. Yeah.
but I think success also means different things to different people. And if you have a very strong why and you have a very strong values, and that values are transferred to your staff and that to your clients, you build a brand. And when you have a very strong brand, people will come to you. I think when we said before, in business, there's 4 things that you need to do. There's relationships, it's branding, it's marketing, and it's sales. When you know your values and your why, when it comes to relationships, it's just so easy to say why people need to do business with you. Why do they need to make use of your services? Because they can relate to your why and to your values. When it gets to branding, Apple, I think, done it very well. Amazon, it is so strong that people they don't have to do anything because the brand is so strong. When you look at marketing, when you know your why and your values, you can just so much more laser focus on how you're going to market your business. When it gets to sales, sales is the outcome. You never start with sales. That is the outcome. But your values help you to build that part of your business. Your relationships, your branding, your marketing, and your sales.
Yeah, and I think once you have a clear why and values, the next thing you really need to do is make sure that you're employing staff that have the same why and values that resonate with what you're trying to achieve. And one of the things that's really interesting about matching up your sort of highest values with your work or your purpose is that you will find what you're doing inspiring in and of itself. So certainly I know there are activities that it doesn't feel like I'm going to work. I sort of can't wait to get there, read up, figure out what I'm going to do because it's energizing. And if you're really engaged and you really are inspired in what you're doing and you're working with team members who feel the same way, then obviously the company's going to succeed.
Yeah, but sorry, I just want to jump in there. If you have to keep on motivating your staff all the time, it's hard work. But if they're inspired, just think you set a goal, they're all inspired to reach that goal, they reach it, you reward them. What do you think is going to happen to your next goal? So I say inspire your staff, don't motivate them. If they're inspired, they will just do it.
And I think the interesting thing about trying to motivate people is you really need to know your staff because I remember an incident working for a company a couple of years back where there was a goal. I can't say that I felt engaged with the goal, but it was a goal the company wanted to achieve. And when the company achieved that goal, the reward was they took everybody out for a drink. Now, if you don't drink, that's not really much of a reward. If it wasn't really a goal that you felt engaged with, the whole sort of process was a little bit meaningless. So I think you've really got to hire the right people in the right positions, hire people who really are aspiring to achieve your why, and then the work itself is inspiring and people are collaborating rather than competing with each other for what might in the end not actually be something that's motivating for them anyway.
I think I used this example before. A German company, they said that their staff between 8 and 10 can work on a project of their choice, but there was no social media, no telephone calls, no emails. And it inspired the staff to work on things that they thought can build a business. Productivity went through the roof, and there were so many new ideas that a company could use to build that business. it's amazing what happens when you look after your staff and you inspire your staff, but they believed in the values of that company.
Yes. I think something that's incredibly stressful and that creates a lot of unhappiness at work is when your own values are in conflict with what you're expected to do at work. It's a very uncomfortable situation to be in, and unfortunately I don't think anybody is really the winner in that situation. Certainly not the employer, not the customer or client, and not the company at the end of the day as well.
No. I think we always say, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. So if you have questions regarding values, regarding your why, please contact us on our website, vitalscienceconsulting.com.au.
Welcome back to Vital Signs, where we're talking about your values, your why, and we'd also like to talk about your passions. So one of the questions we got was, how does why tie in with your values, but also what about your passions? And I find this a really, really interesting notion, because certainly just chatting to family and friends about this, a lot of people believe that you're born with a passion. And so if you don't have a passion, well, you clearly just weren't born with one, and so you don't have one, which doesn't really leave you anywhere. What are your thoughts on passion?
I think there's a different view. I remember since I was 5 or 6 years old, I always wanted to be a policeman. So when I was 16 years old, I joined the police reserve force. When I was 18, finishing school, my dad said, you cannot go to the police unless you get a degree. And while studying and get a part-time job, I actually found something that I really like doing. So when I finished my degree, I didn't join the police, but I still stayed on as a reservist doing what I love doing, but followed a different passion. So I think sometimes you don't know what you don't know unless you get exposed to it. And in business especially, I think it's so important that when you get a business coach, they expose you to other things that you didn't even know about. So I'm very grateful for that in my life, because I had best of both worlds.
Yeah, you had a passion that you were almost born with, you discovered really early in your life. I guess my story is a little different, because I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do with my life, and I almost sort of stumbled upon what I eventually went into. So I guess in my case, it was a case of discovering and then developing a passion. And I think that is important. Some of us are very fortunate. We know from an early age what our passion is, and it happens to be something that will be able to generate us an income later on. In some cases, we may have a real passion that maybe is not going to generate the income we need. But one of the great things about coaching is exploring ways in which you can use that passion and get that inspiration and energy and use it in your business. And you and I were chatting about one of your clients where we're exploring that.
Yeah. But I think sometimes, there's a lot of people that wants to do healing. But the healing is not going to make the money for them to do it. So they need to do something else to make money so they can do what they love. And I think that's a lot of the time, that's the case, that you need to do something else that you don't actually have a passion for to finance your passion.
Yeah. Again there though, I think understanding your why as you say, your why, understanding your why and being dedicated to that will enable you to endure the potential pain you may need to go through to get to the outcome. And I'm thinking of sort of one of our situations where we have someone who works as a medical professional but is really, really passionate about teaching and doesn't really have an opportunity to teach. But one of the things we'd be looking at there is sort of what opportunities would there be using social media, using YouTube to actually still be able to live that passion, reach many more people, and still be able to achieve your wine business and be financially viable.
Well, last week was such a good week for me. Two of my clients that we work with, what is your why and your values? It took us about 4 weeks to get there. But once they realized that I just could see in their eyes, they got it. And it changed the whole dynamic or coaching dynamic once they know what they want to do. And they then found their passion.
Okay.
So it's an amazing experience to work with somebody and say, that is it.
And what do you think it was a passion that they'd known they had, or was it just seeing it in that light for the first time?
I think seeing it in the light for the first time, but also, like we said before, speaking about those feelings, it's in the limbic system in the brain. There's no language, and we don't talk about our feelings. So sometimes it's a process to get there. But once you've got it, everything changes. How you think, how you're going to do it. There's a much more positive atmosphere. It's amazing to see that happening.
Again, I guess it's just that energy, natural energy coming through, because it's something that really resonates with you.
But also, because they're positive now, they're more motivated, to do that, and the accountability is there. So when we set the goals, guaranteed next week it will be done, because they know their passion, they know their why, they know their value, their accountability is there, and now the results start to come.
That's true. I guess when you're really excited and motivated and inspired by something, you actually can't wait to find out more. So it doesn't feel like hard work. You kind of want to get to it. You want to reach that goal quickly. You want to go out there and find out as much as you can.
But that's what we said in the previous shows, is that the higher the value, the more motivated you are, the more you to have some pain with the pleasure as well. So no pain, no gain.
And I think just to bring it back to what we were saying right at the beginning of the show, is that there is no such thing as a perfect business. And I think it's unrealistic to expect that you're going to have a good day every day. And there are going to be aspects of our work and our business which just has to get done. But when you've got that clear why and you can incorporate those values that inspire you, you just have that clear pathway to success.
But also, if you're that clear about your values and what you want to do, those things that you don't like doing, it might be more cost effective getting somebody doing that things that you don't like, so that you can be motivated and keep on doing what you do. Be the CEO of your business. Look forward. What is the future? But if you are doing things that you don't like, it drags you down. So sometimes it actually costs you money by not doing that.
Yeah, and I think in the beginning we do all feel that we have to do everything in our businesses.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And sometimes initially that is the case, but as you say, if there's something that just really isn't your strong point, it's a really low on your list of values, you might actually do better to give that to someone who does get excited about filing an admin, for example.
Or accounting.
Because then again, it's something that they will do well, it's something that they enjoy and they get inspired by.
So if you have any questions, please go to our website, vitalscienceconsulting.com.au, leave a comment and we'll get back to you, and we can even discuss it with the next show.
Welcome back to Vital Signs Consulting, where we're talking passions, values and why. And we were having a bit of a chat in the break, just talking about, well, what are good values, what are bad values, how do values change over time according to your priorities in life? And Gerhard, you had a lovely example.
Yes, I think I want to start with my motto.
Yes.
From Albert Einstein, to say the height of stupidity is doing things the same way and expect different results. So the example I want to use is totally different. If we look at King Arthur, when the knights came around the round table, in the middle was basically the values of that community that they have to protect. And everybody sitting around that table, they need to have the same values. They need to, whatever they do is to protect the people of that community. But when King Arthur came to sit down, he took his crown off and put it on the table and said, now we're equals. Mm-hmm. So everybody around the table could give their input without being afraid of being, say, you know, what are you thinking? Are you stupid?
Yeah. Disrespecting the
Disrespecting, yeah. So everybody had an equal say, and everything that was discussed was because of the values in the middle of the table to protect that values of that community. So that's a totally different way of doing it. From you have the CEO on the top, and then you have the managers, and then you have the. It's a totally different way of managing.
Yes.
And people feel hurt because they have a voice. And I just thought that was such an amazing example of doing things differently, and I think getting a much better result in your business.
I guess the message there in terms of values, as you say, is that we're all equal.
Oh yes.
Everybody can come and truly give their input and feel that they can do it comfortably without being judged.
Yeah, but I think companies like Google, for example, if you see their culture, everybody's giving input. If you also look at the age group, and you know, we talk about the millennials, and how they think about business and how we think. We said, "Oh, these guys crazy," but they're going to make the world go round again.
Yes.
You know. They got excellent ideas, and I think especially in corporates, if you want to know where the business is going to be, you need to get the young people in and say, where do you see business in 4 or 5 years? I mean, we've got a situation when we have to look at social media. We will phone a 14-year-old and say, listen here, can you explain how this works?
Yeah.
You know, so how can we think that, you know, at our age, that we are the only people that can look into the future and say this is how business is going to be? I really think is that we have to get everybody involved in your business, young, old, to give their input.
And I guess one of the things I'm hearing is that depending on your values and how you can communicate that will also empower people within the organisation. So if one of the values you have is when we come to the meeting table, we're all equal.
Yes.
I want to hear what everybody thinks, then that brings a culture of feeling valued and able to contribute,
yes,
rather than being too anxious to say what you think because you may be ridiculed or not taken seriously. Yes. So values have a role to play in setting the company culture and empowering people in their positions.
But I think that's also where the CEOs comes in, because they need to be authentic, okay, and they need to be the chief experienced officer, understand? And do or get into a setting where your people feel that they can think forward. Because we always say in business, you have to be 8 steps ahead. You always have to keep on innovating. Otherwise, you will go out of business. Okay, and by doing that, if you start to say, but you are part of this innovation, you are part of this future, you're going to help us be 8 steps ahead of our competitors. They feel valued. And what gets you, when you get to your goal and you reward them, it will repeat.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I guess I'm just sort of sitting and thinking that we talk a lot about the difference between training and education, yes, and training is very much about the what and the how, and it's about making things efficient, it's about optimizing things from a monetary point of view. But really, when we talk about education, and often practices will go, well, what do we have to educate people on? What we're really talking about is values.
Yes.
If you understand the company values, then you're empowered to make a decision if there isn't somebody whose management that's around to
Yes.
ask. If you understand the company's why, then you can problem solve because you know how the company wants its customers or clients to be treated. Yeah.
I think for a very long time, management didn't allow people to think. For me at the moment is if you employ people, they need to be part of your values. So when you interview your staff or new staff, ask them, what is your values? The scary part is that this last week I asked one or two people, so what is your core value? And this is business owners.
Yeah.
They were going a little blank. You know, so the business owners, the owners are on you to know your values, that you can communicate it to your staff, to your customers, and you will build a loyal following. And you don't have to explain why they have to buy your service or your product.
Because in the absence of value, price is always going to be what people use to make a
Exactly.
decision.
I think say that again.
So in the absence of value, people are always going to look at price. But if they know your why, they understand why your product, why your service.
If you have any questions, any suggestions, please contact us on vitalscienceconsulting.com.au and we'll get back to you.